Ever wonder how some financial services and fintech leaders learned about money when they were kids? Well, we've asked them 4 important questions to get their answers, and you definitely will want to hear them. Join me today as we hear from Gayle Reaume, CEO and founder of Moolah U. Hey everyone, Mac Gardner here, author of Motivate Your Money and the global best-selling children's book, The Four Money Bears. I am joined today by the one, the only Gayle Reaume. Gayle, how are you? CEO, founder of Moolah U. Great to have you with us today.
I love this conversation. Thanks for inviting me.
Very well. Now, Gayle, for those folks who do not know who you are, please share a little bit about yourself and the work that you're doing with Moolah U.
Right. So I am here to, my mantra, I call it, is the end the suffering of scarcity, which, it's a real mindset issue and it starts at a very young age and it's very cultural. So I discovered that years ago with my daughter and I realized that I could interrupt that and create a different reality for her. So I've been doing entrepreneurship education with kids forever because that's a really great way to learn about money. And we've recently expanded to include a lot of parent coaching and training because ultimately where kids learn about money is at home. They watch what their parents are doing. Parents are implementing various strategies, whether it's allowance or, paying for chores, and they're not having a lot of success with that. Yeah. And we also know that it's not something you can just teach.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be learned. It's a life skill. You can't learn how to ride a bike by watching a video.
Habits. You got to do it. You got to be in. You would just say you can't learn to swim by standing on the side of the river. You got to be in there.
You got to get in the pool.
You got to get in the pool. So, Gayle, we've known each other for some time. We've both been rowing the same boat, and you've been on one oar with your platform. And I think one of the things that we're excited about with the launch of our game, the Four Money Bears Berryville, is that we're really working to attack the I won't call it the issue, but the crux of this early, right? And starting these habits, starting the engagement of financial education early. What are some of your early memories of money education?
Yeah, this is a great question. I grew up, my parents were, from the Depression or had been raised during those times, and money was very different. They didn't have credit. You had to manage money really differently. And really in the moment, you couldn't put off debt and things. So we were raised not to do that, to truly manage your money. And we also learned about value. Value isn't created by doing things that you're supposed to do anyway, like chores, for instance. Like, if you're putting your plate in the sink after dinner, you shouldn't be getting paid for that. Who's going to pay you for that when you're an adult? So we really learned what it means to manage money at a child-sized version of it, right? So we were given responsibility for certain purchases that were being made on behalf of us, but they were making the decision. So they shifted into money mentor versus money manager, and it really taught me a lot. And I also learned how to create value, right? Like the big question that kids have is, why do we need money? Why isn't everything free? Well, that's a pretty deep question you can't answer with a bunch of information.
No.
So we learned how to create value. And from a very young age, we were doing entrepreneurship projects. I remember running an art camp with my sister for all the neighborhood kids. My mom,
That's pretty cool.
managed a lot of it with us, but we learned that people would pay us to do things that they wanted. And so I was probably 8 years old when I started really seeing you can create value in the world. And then what is it that you do with that money is probably the most important thing that we learned, which is that you don't only spend it. Money is used in a lot of ways. And one is, to get the things we need and want. And the other is to use it to make more money. It's a tool. So I learned that pretty early on. And in my programs and what I've done with my daughter is she was required to save 10% of her money for investing.
Richest Man in Babylon. One of the best things you should do. Save
That
10%.
was a really pivotal book for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, Gail, you and I could, literally be talking about this topic for a long time. And I love when you mention the value associated with your time, and then that combining value and time and creativity to then connect that money spurs from that. I think that's something that a lot of folks don't necessarily think about. We think about, okay, yeah, you work, you do stuff, but sort of what real value are you bringing into the world with your time, with your essence, with your energy, and then how does that then turn into this financial reward? And then how do you convert that into other things? Spending, saving, investing, and giving. We talk about with the four money bears. So this ties nicely into, Gail, the next question is, what did money represent to you in your home as a child? You touched on it a little bit. Maybe expand a little bit. Like, what did it represent?
Well, because I was responsible for making a lot of my own financial decisions in small, child-sized ways, I understood the idea of getting the best value for your money and learning to be frugal and not just being a consumer because it's out there. And, we're in such a, immediate gratification society with how fast we can buy things with a click of a button on our phone. And I really learned to be careful about the choices and to think long and hard about how I wanted to use that money, because once I used it for one thing, I couldn't use it for something else.
Yep.
So that was really critical for me to understand, how to use value and how to create value and bring money in. But what is the way that we use money to create value? So the idea of investing and you turning some of that money around and making more money with it. And I got kind of hooked on that. So I've always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I've always thought about ways to use my money to make more, which is the essence of business.
And what I really like about this discourse that we have going back and forth here is when people think investing, they think, okay, I got to buy a stock in Nike, or I got to buy a stock in this or buy. But entrepreneurship is you're investing your time and your money into your own business. And that's what we love about the Berryville game that we're building is there's two sides of this money fence, right? There's, okay, how do you earn it? And the player's going to be able to go in and you got to run a berry farm. You got to be able to run your stand and understand the mechanism of entrepreneurship. But okay, now that you've earned it, what do you do with it? What are your options? Are you putting it back into your business? Are you just buying a bunch of clothes? Or are you giving it away? So I think that's a really important aspect of this connection is entrepreneurship is investing. It's investing in yourself and then learning how to do that. So, all right, question number 3. You ready for it?
I just want to riff off of that for a second, which is kids think about investing, and parents even. I was at an event last night and I met a lot of parents and kids, and the idea is, well, I'm investing in the stock market for them, or we invest as a family. And I'm like, are your kids even aware of that? And what do they think of that? It's too big a concept. So one of the reasons that I really enjoy entrepreneurship and the idea of you starting your own business is they can start something really small. They can have a lemonade stand, and that's the tangible child-sized version of them understanding using money to make money. So in the Money Club, which we started when my daughter was young, we bought a bubble gum machine and put it in a really hot restaurant nearby where there were lots of people, and these kids were making money every week. Going over there and counting their quarters, and it just was such a tangible experience versus this stock market. Invisible kind of investment.
This ethereal concept of this big machine when it starts really simple. I think you actually answered the third question, which is how should we teach young people about money and money management? I think you sort of answered it.
But from a parent standpoint, the idea is how do you instill that in your kids when they're young? And that is that the requirement to saving 10% to use to create more money is missing in most educations and in most families. You're going to have a 401k someday. No, you have 10% right now, and you could go do something with that. You save that 10% for a few weeks, and you have enough money to start a lemonade stand. Yeah.
And I think technology is helping a lot too. Technology, it gets a lot of hits and knocks for, it's allowing people to to spend the money that they don't have because everything's a piece of plastic or in that. But the other side of that coin is there are now platforms that allow people to save easier, that allow people to invest easier, to allow people to obtain a life insurance easier. So I think some of the things that I love that we're working on building, Gayle, are digital platforms to help teach you what to do with your money easier. And that's what I love what you're doing with Moolah U. All right, last question for you, Gayle. What's the best advice you've been given when it comes to money?
I don't know that it was advice, but it's what I learned from a young age, is that money is not just for spending. And to really explore that as a child, from a standpoint of requiring that for children, that was really important. I knew never to spend it all. I knew that there was got to be some of it being used in another way. So that was probably the best advice. And I ended up really exploring that a lot more as a young adult than most young adults do. You know, I didn't just walk out into after college and try to make a lot of money. I actually knew that that there were a lot more opportunities for creating sustainability, financial sustainability, than just trading my time. And I think that's probably the most important advice we should all be able to have and experience, right? That you have to be able to see how that's done and do it in a tangible way. Because once you're out in the adult world, it's really hard to stop and think, oh, I'm not going to have that Starbucks today. I'm going to use that instead to feed my saving to invest account. Yeah. It's just not real enough. Yeah. So having that as an early childhood experience was really important.
Yeah, making it real, meeting young people where they are. Yeah. We think gamifying the process is going to be something that can help young people, help families. When I hear your story, Gayle, I hear about you and your daughter, and one of the things that we're really key on, wanting to be a definite offshoot of our game, is that parent-child connectivity. We want to have those experiences where a parent and a child are learning about these things together, and habits are being poured into that next generation. Good, healthy habits about finances will be important to that generation. So, Gayle, I want to thank you so much for all that you're doing. As we wrap up, do you want to share a little bit about what's going on your side as we close our interview?
What you were saying about parents learning alongside their kids or with them is so important, because I think most parents don't have this capacity themselves. Mm-hmm. As like I said, once they become adults, there's some automatic things that happen around investing and saving, but it isn't automatic for everyone. And so for parents to actually play a game with their kids or do things with their kids actually helps them learn it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And if nothing else, they understand better how to talk about it with their kids. Mm-hmm. And so that's primarily what we focus on. We obviously are working very diligently to give kids experiences with entrepreneurship as a way for them to understand money, how value gets created. And then the next most important thing I'm doing is supporting parents through parent webinars, through challenges, through having them build good structures and systems at home that help their kids. And so we have a really powerful framework for that that's super effective, and we've now been doing it for 20 years. And parents are seeing their kids heading out into their adult lives with much better framework and skills and habits. You know, it's not the knowledge, it's the experience. So helping parents give their kids that experience while they're still young is the most important thing that we can do. So your game and these programs that we do really change the future. It's hard to see it when they're young, but ultimately, I've got 20 years now, 25 years. They are totally transformed. I hear from these parents all the time about how great their kids as adults are doing now. So
that's awesome. Gayle, thank you for all that you have done, all that you do, and all that you continue to do for our industry and for the financial education space. Thank you so much for your time. And as I like to say, the journey continues.
The journey continues. And thank you, Mac. You're doing great work. I love partnering with you on things.
Thank you, Terry. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll join us for our next engaging episode. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and visit www.the4moneybears.com.